Please take some time to enjoy this conversation with 5 familiar faces from our concerts. Dr. Rachel Carlson, conductor of the Camerata and Chamber Singers, Dr. Scott Hippensteel, director of the Wind Ensemble and the Ram Band, Dr. Rob Tudor, conductor of the Ramblers Choir, Miss Christina Smith, program assistant and box office manager, and me, director of the Jazz Ensembles. In this conversation, we discuss some of the factors that led to our choices, the research into safe music making, and what it's like to make music during this pandemic. Thank you for your continued support. We miss all of you dearly and look forward to safely welcoming you to live music back in the Frank Center when we're able. Bye.
Hi, I'm Christina Smith. I'm the program assistant with Shepherd University School of Music. Most of you see me when you stop by to buy tickets before each concert. And tonight, I'm going to join our 4 ensemble directors for a conversation about what we're doing in the music department and the decisions that led us to where we are. And now each of our ensemble directors will introduce themselves. Curtis, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Curtis Adams. I'm the Jazz Ensembles director and also the director of the School of Music.
Dr. Hippensteel?
Yes, I'm Dr. Scott Hippensteel. I am the director of instrumental activities and directing the Wind Ensemble this semester.
Dr. Tudor?
There we go. I'm Dr. Rob Tudor, and I direct the Ramblers Gospel Pop Choir.
And that leaves you, my friend.
Hi, I'm Dr. Rachel Carlson. I'm the director of choral activities, and I conduct the Camerata Soprano Alto Choir and the Chamber Singers.
All right. So in one of the ensemble directors meetings, you all pulled together a list of questions, and I'm just going to work my way through those questions. We'll start with thinking back to the spring. March usually kicks off our busy concert season, and you all had been preparing concerts that we were going to present. What was it like to not be able to perform the pieces that you had been working on? Anybody who wants to take that question first can.
I'll go. It was a bummer. I mean, we had been working pretty hard in the Jazz Ensemble. We had one concert that we did earlier in the semester for the Honor Music Festival, which was really fun. And we had been working up a whole lot of music that was based through the history of jazz. And the students were really excited to play it in April at our concert. And then all of a sudden we didn't get to. So it was pretty sad. I remember hearing from a lot of students how disappointed they were, how much they wish they could play the music.
Yeah, we were about 2 weeks away from our choir concert, so the music was basically ready to go. You know, we were right in that last period of rehearsal. We also had some student conductors who were looking forward to conducting on the concert. Luckily, we are finding a way to get them to conduct this fall, which is good.
It's kind of funny in this convention of talking, it's like you want to pause and try to figure out who's going to talk next, right? That's our Zoom life right now. Yeah, it was, Rachel and I were about to do the concert. We were a couple weeks away. Rachel, did we have a high school that was going to come and sing too?
Yeah, TJ, Thomas Johnson, yeah, and Frederick. Mm-hmm.
Which is great. Rachel started that when she first got here, inviting high schools to come and sing in our concert, which is always welcome and delightful. So it was really hard. I mean, obviously we were all sort of scrambling to try to figure out, to assess what we were dealing with, to convert to teaching online, but also realizing that we had prepared so much music and we're ready to go and we couldn't present it. We didn't know what to do.
Scott, do you have anything? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was disappointing too. Especially for symphonic band, because the rehearsals it was our dress rehearsal the week before spring break and it was almost a certain thing on that very Tuesday that we weren't going to be able to perform. So we just kind of said, let's make this last rehearsal as, count, because we don't know what else we're going to get. And sure enough, we didn't get to come back. And there's a couple pieces I've rolled over into this fall to be able to sort of bridge that gap. But certainly it was disappointing for all of us.
Scott, you bring up a perfect segue into my next question. So when we realized that we were going to be back in person and we could make music, thinking about the programming for this fall, what challenges did you face, and were specific choices made on repertoire pieces? And I imagine it's similar for our two instrumental people, and it's similar for our two choral people, but each of you probably have different specific challenges. I'd love to hear about each of them.
Well, if I'm going to start on this one, we immediately began discussing in May, once we thought this was possible, how and where can we actually rehearse? Is it going to be safe? What precautions can we bring into place? Which is another question. But so there were a lot of discussions that we had as a group over the summer and planning out how are we going to be able to do this, and then let alone what are we going to be able to do? How are we going to be able to program? Are we going to be able to sing or play close enough together? So we had a lot of considerations to wrestle with throughout the last few months of the summer. As far as programming concerns, for me, we've started with our student conductor concert. And so I have 6 student conductors, and they were already working on pieces in the spring. So those pieces were specifically brought forward this semester to give them an opportunity to work with a live ensemble, which is very valuable as they go out and student teach in the near future. Some of the other pieces that I chose were just based around balancing that program for this first one. And I guess you just say thinking about what kind of experience we want them to have with music and playing together. I specifically chose some things that I thought would set up well with an ensemble that needed some experience. We haven't played together since March, and it took a little while for us to settle back into playing as an ensemble again.
Hey, if I could jump in and back up just a second, because I want something that you said, Scott, made me just like go down memory lane. Do you all remember when we pivoted into quarantine and going into online and being faced with the daunting task of trying to figure out how we're going to continue to meet the challenges of delivering the classes and the ensembles and stuff that we had for the rest of the semester? But do you remember what we were doing and preparing to do right around the time that we had to go into quarantine?
Oh, I remember it well.
Yeah.
We were about to go on to a tour for a tour to New York.
It's like a 4-day tour to New York City. And we're going to go to Jazz at Lincoln Center and see a Broadway show and an opera. No, what was it?
Yeah, an opera.
An opera.
La Traviata.
Oh my God, there was so much that we were going to do. And we were not only dealing with, there were so many variables because it happened at the peak of our semester. We start March and just race through to the end of the semester. So I was thinking about that, recalling all the decisions we had to make so quickly.
And we were supposed to leave March 13th, and we made the decision not to go March 11th. And looking back now, it just is right in the middle of all of this happening.
And right at the high point for New York.
Right. We were supposed to leave on March 13th and didn't Broadway shut down on March 14th?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. That was incredible. Yeah. I'll talk later on about the programming choices I made, but I was just kind of reliving that cascade of decisions that we had to make.
That's useful to add to all of it. It feels, at least as the person who sits in the passenger seat with you all, it feels that there has been so much happening. It is easy to forget how many decisions were made constantly since March to get us to where we are now.
Right, and part of this conversation was for us to kind of unpack about how we prepared for this fall, but what our experiences were, right? And I was just thinking about when Scott was offering that, and Rachel, I was thinking about, we had weekly meetings every week from February and they've continued. Normally in the summer it's really quiet, but we were just like constantly sharing all the latest research that our professional organizations were giving out, gaming out how we're going to do this, gaming 1 and 2 and 3 scenarios for the semester from March all the way until now. We're still talking about alternative scenarios.
So, I mean, Rob, there's no reason to not slip into what the programming choices were that you and Rachel had to make as part of those many decisions, you know, once it,
Yeah. Well,
voice is so specific.
well, I think, Rachel has 2 choirs, and so she has a lot more programming choices that she has to make, and I have the one. But also, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, the spring semester is when we launched the Ramblers Gospel Pop Choir. I had moved away from the tenor bass choir because the numbers were kind of dwindling, and we knew that there was an interest in this because we had a group of students that was really interested in doing a cappella music. So, and I had experience doing that, so I was like, I'll do that, and we started it. And I had this brand new group that I put together with experiences all over the map that I couldn't even put on the stage. And so I had a wide variety of music that I was doing. Kirk Franklin's Lean on Me, which I carried over into this fall because it's such a great song and it has a very positive message. I'm going to be here for you in your hardest, most difficult moment. You can lean on me, my friend. I will be there for you. And then I was also going to do Testify to Love, which was recorded by Winona Judd, and we didn't carry that forward. And Gold from the musical Once the New Musical. We were doing that as well. And I can't remember, there was another piece that we didn't carry forward. But I'll sort of end my exploration of this by saying each of us approaches repertoire in very, very different ways. We want to challenge our own students. We want to talk about all the elements of music. We want to talk about, melody, rhythm, harmony, text, all that sort of stuff. Rachel and actually all of us are talking about our pieces in their cultural context. So I chose pieces because of the social activism events of the summer. I chose pieces for this fall that were written by popular artists in the 1960s during a time of great civil unrest as an opportunity to have a conversation about how history can repeat itself. So we've been talking about the 1950s and the 1960s and the 1970s, civil rights, women's rights, and talking about what the context was of these pieces that were written. And often they're pieces that I'm bringing forward that have been rearranged. And I know the other ensemble directors have brought a conscious decision to the pieces that they've chosen either to do in the first concert or the second concert or the third concert. But for me, it has been social awareness, cultural context, musical challenges, and variety of styles in the repertoire that I've chosen for the fall. For example, the next concert we'll do, we're doing Lean on Me, and I'm sorry, I can't think of the other piece, and I'm recording it tomorrow. I can't think of what the name of it is. But it'll come to me. Imagine, John Lennon's Imagine. We talked about John Lennon and how important the song Imagine it is considered worldwide as a song of peace, but it has a very subversive social message in it. No religion, no nations, just in this, it's very, very interesting, but it has been adopted as a song of universal peace. We're also going to be doing Paul Simon's American Tune, and I trace the history of that tune, the seed of the piece, from a motet to being in Bach's St. Matthew's Passion as the tune O Sacred Head, Sore Wounded, brought into Paul Simon's American Tune, which is a song that makes a political commentary on where we were in 1965, I think it was, 1972 or 73, when he released that.
So I think I took a pretty unique approach out of all of us in terms of rehearsal, in that I'm rehearsing entirely online. And I think I'm going to be talking about that more a little bit later. But of course, I was thinking about what pieces we could do successfully while rehearsing and recording online. And so that was something I was keeping in mind. Every time I program, I try to think about giving students lots of different kinds of repertoire. So early music, world music, contemporary, some of the classics, the canon. I try to make sure that we really cover a lot of ground during their time studying with me. And I really do think about trying to program female composers and composers of color. That's really important to me. But this summer, especially, obviously, there's so much going on in this country around racial equity, and it really made me sit down and think about, who are the African American and Black composers that I know, and who are the ones I don't know. And I want to know more about them. I want to know their work. I want to make sure that I'm programming music by Black composers that's not all idiomatic, also, that it's not just spirituals and just gospel music, non-idiomatic music by Black composers as well. So I don't think that my programming is incredibly different than in other years, but spending that time this summer doing that research and learning more has definitely influenced my programming somewhat this fall, but it will continue to in the semesters to come. I plan to continue to do that work.
Curtis, I probably talked to you the most out of all of our ensemble directors as my supervisor. I know that you made some decisions on the length and the difficulty on some of the repertoire, since we are standing on ever shifting sands. I'd be interested to hear about some of that in addition to whatever planned response you already had.
Sure. So part of my choices as far as the music went was in part based on what I knew the band was going to look like. So with a jazz ensemble, it's all one on a part. So we don't have, there's never two people playing the same part. It's always one person playing that part. So that gives a lot of responsibility to each player to know their music. And jazz can have quite a bit of a virtuosic element in each part. Each player is responsible for playing pretty hard music a lot of the time. So I had to really think about the individual people in the band that were going to be there. And I made the choice to continue. Anyone who wanted to play from the spring could continue to play because they didn't get a chance to perform. And then I filled in the rest with new people. And so I really had to think about each player and what they're capable of in a very short amount of time, because we were the first large group to go on the stage. So we had a pretty early recording date for that first set. So that was part of my consideration. So I thought about each player and then chose the music really based around those ability levels. And we hit it pretty well on the head, which was good. And it really gave them a sense of feeling comfortable in playing. So that was nice. And then the next sets, the music is going to get a little bit more challenging as we go, but they also have more time. In terms of other factors, being the jazz band guy, we're always playing Black music. Jazz is Black folk music in its roots. So we're always thinking of that. And particularly our first set really features a lot of music, or features pretty much all music from very famous Black composers. So we have Louis Armstrong, we have Duke Ellington, and we have Dizzy Gillespie. And then throughout the other programming, or throughout all the rehearsals and everything, we're talking a lot about cultural context. And particularly like with the Duke Ellington piece we're doing in a mellow tone, or one of them in a mellow tone, it was an earlier work. So it reflects some of his earlier stylistic traits that we talk about, and some of the cultural context of where he composed the pieces and how he was working in various situations that ended up giving birth to some really unique music because of some very different circumstances for making music. So we talk about all of that, various other aspects. We're also programming, thinking of social justice. Jazz has often had either a undercurrent of social justice or social pushback or commentary, and sometimes a much more overt, I guess you'd say, just, well, an overt reference to things. So we're actually programming a Mingus tune that is a very big social protest song from Mingus's band, Charles Mingus's band in the 60s. And just some other things that are more, I guess you'd say, fun. No real reason to play them other than that they swing hard. So that's a bit of what went into my thinking.
Cool.
Can I add some? I know that a lot of us have finalized our music for the holiday season as well. Did you pick your holiday music any differently than you have previously? For example, I thought a lot about, I had social issues very much on my mind, like all of us have for the whole summer. And for one of the holiday gala tunes, I'm arranging Queen Lili Ukulani's, it's called the Queen's Prayer, which I always listen to on the winter solstice CD. For years I've been listening to it. I have a fantastic recording of Ozzy Kutani playing it, I think it is. And so I chose this. It's a piece that I associate with the holidays, even though unless you have this album, you probably don't associate it with the holidays because it's not necessarily a holiday song. But because of what's been going on, I picked this piece to do for the holiday gala. She also wrote it in 1895 when she was imprisoned under house arrest. You know, just tying it to that. Did any of you make any decisions about holiday gala programming, given all the things that we've been experiencing?
Well, one thing I do want to try for Holiday Gala this year is part of the Duke Ellington version of the Nutcracker Suite. We're gonna see how that goes, but that's one I've always wanted to try, and students for at least the past 4 years or 5 years have asked, can we play some part of it? He did a whole complete rendition, jazz rendition of the Nutcracker Suite as a ballet that takes place in Harlem. But there's a few pieces out of it that I've always wanted to try. So we'll give them a shot.
It helps if I hit the mute button first. I was actually just thinking about that as a group, that we have a very kind of holistic programming model. We look at pieces for your mind, your heart, your body, your soul, and throughout all the pieces that we'll be looking at, I think there's a very eclectic set of things that you think about. You know, this piece gives you something to think about. This one you really feel. This one is just, hey, this one puts a smile on your face and you tap your toe. And so that's part of the beauty of our art form, I would say, is that it has so many different points of connection. And so that's really one of our big, I guess, obviously, wishes is that we're programming for our students. We want their educational experiences here to be very rich, but we also program with audience in mind. Is, well, how do we connect to an audience as a musician, and especially how do we connect during these times when we're not allowed to have a live performance? And so that we've had some really great challenges, but I love the thought process that all of us go through, and we talk about this together, and it really makes for some rich and meaningful programming.
So once we made the decision that we could make music, you know, that this could happen, and we were getting support from our administration, and as more information was coming out, I know I sat in so many meetings with each of you where you were talking about the new study that you just read, the new fact that just came out, the new piece of equipment or safety thing that had hit the market. I think that it'd be really great for us to talk about the safety precautions each ensemble is taking and what that looks like, what those things are, and how we're doing what we're doing. Anybody want to go first?
I'll go first. Um, so yes, Christina, thank you for the memories of um, summer of 2020 spent learning about aerosolization, which is a vocabulary word that I didn't even know existed. But there it is. So I think a big thing, and I guess Scott and I share a lot of the same precautions. So wind playing, obviously we're blowing out, which is, has its dangers. And so part of what we've done is following the research, you would find that wind instruments, for the most part, capture a lot of the particles that would come out otherwise. They're caught in the instrument. They condense before they get out of the instrument. And so they're captured in there. The ones that could potentially escape would usually come out of the bell. So part of what we do is each instrumentalist that you see has a little cloth covering that fits snugly around their bell. It's like a little mask for their instrument. So that's one of the things they do. Another is that just a very basic protocol is if you're not playing, if you're not actively playing your instrument, you should have your face covering back on. That's one that we typically do. And then the flutes. So flutes, the air just kind of goes out. It doesn't actually go in the instrument. People out in the listening audience may not know that. So we found, thanks to our flute instructor, Ann Monroe, who helped us out with this, found a piece of equipment called the Wind Defender, which was originally intended to help flute players play in windy conditions. So it was intended actually to keep air out of the embouchure hole. And what it does is it turns the air, it catches the air and cycles it around so it hits them in the chest, or like right up here. So we actually have all of our flute players using the Wind Defender, so it actually keeps the air from going out. So it functions again like a mask. And then Scott, you want to talk about the shielding? That's kind of your baby.
Boy, howdy. Yes, I do. Well, actually, the idea came from the Army band first that had created these little plexiglass walls where you could still see through them, but they would maintain a barrier between you and the other musicians so that they could rehearse more safely. And so we worked on campus with the Fafner Lab, and they were able to manufacture some little partitions that are on wheels that we can move around and position wherever we need between different rooms that we're rehearsing in, and to be able to protect the students. So basically, we have these little cubicles that the students are in. This what Chase calls the plastic farm. So we have all these little cubicles set up on stage. I have about 30 musicians on stage, most of the woodwinds, and then I have about 25 musicians out in the auditorium house that are all spread out about 10 feet apart to be able to play sort of at each other with the percussion and myself in the middle. So we're using a variety of different methods. That's when we have to be indoors. We're also rehearsing outdoors when we can, when weather permits, and to just be able to keep as much distance from each other as we can. When we transition from each place, we're really careful to have our masks on. You won't see a lot of that in our video of our performance because we're kind of landlocked at that point. But the students have been taking to heart these safety precautions and been following them, I think, very well from my standpoint. Another thing that we've also did some research on and experiences, the water keys on the brass instruments might release some bad moisture. So we have little towels, our puppy pads that they collect their own moisture and take it with them. So we're really being as careful as we absolutely can to reduce that. Not only that, we take breaks more often to be able to allow the aerosol in the room to clear, or we've shortened a lot of rehearsals um, so that we'll make sure that we're not putting our students at an increased risk just to be in an ensemble.
I will say that putting in an order for puppy pads was certainly one of the strangest things I've ever ordered for ensembles.
I'm happy to jump in on the vocal end of things. This research has been changing sometimes weekly, certainly monthly since March. And I feel like I spent all summer attending webinars and learning and trying to stay on top of it. And it is still underway. The research is still happening. There was a large aerosol study in Colorado that was happening over the summer in preparation for this fall, knowing that all of these choral directors need to know how to rehearse safely. And so what they have said and discovered through the study up to this point is that masks are very effective at keeping, even when singing, at keeping the aerosols kind of nearby your face. Being socially distanced of at least 6 feet is really important. More is better, and outside is better than inside. But if you are going to be inside, they recommend 30 minutes, and then you need to let the air disperse. So those are sort of the precautions that we've been trying to think about. I decided to go online, go a live remote route. So I've been using a program called Jamulus with my choirs. Everyone is in their own space on their own computer, and then it's a low latency program, so we all connect in. It's better with a hardwire, with an Ethernet connection, and we can actually all hear each other in real time. It's not perfect, but it's much better than Zoom or something that's higher latency like that. So we have been rehearsing online with Jamulus and then with video on Zoom. And that's how we've been doing our rehearsals. We are doing recordings on a web-based program called BandLab. I have students record their voice parts, and then we kind of virtual choir it together, put all the voice parts together. And then last week we actually came in person for 30 minutes in the auditorium to record a couple of tracks for the broadcast. So we're going to be using a mixture of all those things when we release all of that, sort of whatever works best for each piece.
And I want to add that you all are absolutely amazing colleagues, all of you. Christina, Rachel, Scott, Curtis, you're amazing. We spent hours and hours and hours and hours working from March forward, trying to just figure out how we're going to do this. And there were many times when it just seemed impossible, or it just seemed like the research wasn't supporting us doing it, or I just remember there were times when I would just, so how are we going to do this? And we just kept at it and solving it and digging down and solving it. And from this, Christina, from researching and creating and introducing to us this platform for us to present our programs, to how are we going to put it on stage, how, all those things. Rachel, she has been holding my hand, because all summer I've been working with the larger colleges, the dean, and I'd have to once in a while to sort of check out and go, okay, I'm a musician now. Now, where are we on this? And Rachel held my hand and helped me set up the Jamulus program, which requires you to create your own server and then load the software and troubleshoot that. And I, at one point, had to get a friend of mine who's a programmer to come in and help me write the language. Well, he wrote it for me. I just walked him through and told him what I had to do to solve the problems. And then I ran out of the room because I wanted to bring this. This is a singer's mask. This is the inside of the singer's mask, and it's quite different from what you would normally wear to like the grocery store and around in public. And that it looks like this when you put it on. And I keep on saying that I'm going to dye mine orange and put a big black line right along here so I look like I'm wearing a duckbill. But it's a really interesting mask in that you can probably hear me pretty clearly. The air escapes this way. So when it's hot outside, it's not comfortable to wear. but it is a much better way for us to sing because it allows complete freedom of movement inside and articulation. Now, speaking of outside, my choir is the smallest of the choirs, and so I work over in the Center for Contemporary Art Phase 1 on the campus, and I work upstairs, so I have a keyboard that I roll across the landing and go down the elevator and roll out into the breezeway on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons and meet with my 10 singers. And we spread out more than 6 feet, and we're in a breezeway, so there's constantly air moving, and we're all wearing masks. And we rehearse in that space, which also has an overhang, which is great for acoustics. So that's going to work for a little while longer until the weather turns, and then we're going to have to go completely online.
So as we've been talking about the safety precautions, as some of you have been able to talk about what rehearsals look like, is there anything that you want to add to rehearsing in this time period, what that feels like, what's different? Are there positive discoveries that you've made?
Oh, I think one of the really positive discoveries, and we were just talking about this not too many days ago, this group right here, is the incredible professionalism that our students have. We kind of were able to unlock this level of preparation and musicianship that I don't think they even knew they were capable of. Because a lot of this is very much more in line with what you would do in the professional world. You get very few rehearsals to work on the music, and you're responsible for your own part quite a bit. And then you go in and record, and that's been our experience. And I mean, just they've risen to the challenge. It's impressive to see what they're capable of.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was going to just add to that. When they made the decision for football to go to spring, we decided to move marching band to the spring, which meant we had a little bit of band camp time. So we ended up having a music camp where we had a few rehearsals the week before school started to sort of kick this thing off with the ensembles. And I clearly remember the student mindset. And to be honest, mine and probably all of ours at the time was, we're not going to make it 2 weeks. So the idea was, we're going to make music together today and enjoy it for the most that we can. And I found that we lived in the moment a little more. We enjoyed we didn't take for granted so much the fact that we were going to be able to be together. And I think the students really rose to the occasion and quickly moved things forward and did the best they could. For me, we kept changing. We'd be in this spot one day, another spot another day. Let's change I've probably done 7 different setups. So there's no settling in for a while as we continue and move forward. So it's really made up for a very adaptable and flexible student. If there's nothing else they have learned during this time period, it's how to be flexible.
I want to add, Rachel invited me to a rehearsal of 6 Degree Singers, the other choir that she rehearses, or that she runs as you're both the choral director and artistic director of the organization. And I hadn't sung with a choir since rehearsing with our choirs in the beginning of March. And I was profoundly moved just to be sight reading through music with a bunch of other singers, because I hadn't had that experience. And I'll tell you, getting together with our students and making music with them is such a rich blessing at this time.
Yeah, I would echo last week when we were able to make those recordings, and even though the students had to be very professional and we had to lay down these tracks, we didn't have much time. I heard them afterwards just saying, they hadn't sung with a choir in a room in 6 months, and I hadn't conducted in 6 months. And we musicians, we need that. We need to be doing that. It fuels us, and it's really important. So it was very special.
Yeah, we felt the same with the faculty jazz trio. Jazz is all about interaction. We're improvising in the moment, reacting to what the other musicians do. And the 3 of us on that Salon series played the first time together after the first tune, and then we each apologized to each other because it had been 6 months since we'd played with another live human. And we were all a bit rusty, but it was a lot of fun.
I am not a musician. I come from the world of theater, but art is what fuels us. And I had a surprise, sad, beautiful moment hit me sitting in the recording for the jazz ensemble. I sat through the first tune being played, and I started to tear up because my partner and I swing dance, and live music plays a huge role in our lives and in that part of our lives that we care so much about. And listening to jazz being played, I didn't expect it to be so poignant. And it's been a wild journey right now. Now that you all are all back and I'm hearing live music, and to just be reminded of how incredibly important and humanizing and powerful that is. Thinking about our recording project and what's going on, what was the inspiration and the intention of what we're doing by recording our concerts and delivering them?
Blobfest.
Blobfest!
So, do you want? I can talk about the inspiration, I guess.
You're the inspiration.
So there's a film festival. There's a mid-century sort of sci-fi horror film festival that happens in a small town in Pennsylvania, and it's all based on the 1957 or 1958 movie The Blob. And it's a festival that I've been going to for years, and this year they went completely virtual, and I thought there was no way to have this collective experience feel even 50% as good as it feels to be in person at this weekend event. And they turned it into a one-day event, and we all tuned in, and we were all watching at the same time, and we were chatting on a Discord channel, and it felt great. I felt connected to people who are like what I like, who love what I love, and the magic thing about live events, about live arts, is that it is a collective experience. It's why watching a recorded play doesn't feel the same as sitting in the audience. But to be able to take a recorded experience and still share it in real time with other people felt really good. So I came back to our team and said, this was the thing I sat in on. Is there a way that we can do it for us? And we've made it this far.
That kind of informed how we were going to move forward with our programming in our presentations. I think one thing we've neglected to mention is that it is a habit for us. Scott does a couple concerts per semester, but and Curtis, do you do more than one? You do like a jazz concert?
I usually do, yeah.
Yeah. But for Rachel and I, we normally just basically come in with a stack of repertoire and work on segments of it throughout the entire semester, and then about 3/4 of the way, somewhere in the last few weeks of the semester, we present our concert. We programmed differently this year, as if we were going to have to potentially quarantine at any time. So we said, we're going to do small amounts of repertoire, only that stuff, hit it, record it, put it away, and move on. So anybody want to talk about how we conceived of even what we're doing right here, right now?
Sure. Well, Rachel, go ahead.
Oh, I just was going to say that we take all of our ensembles on tour together usually every year. We go to we take a couple of days, go to several local high schools. We do a big recruitment tour for Shepherd School of Music. And so we sort of already had this program. It's about 50 minutes long. We kind of alternate between one of the bands and a choir and kind of back and forth. And we sort of have this program. So as we were talking, we said, we could just do that, and have all of our students performing together on one broadcast.
Well, I was also going to say we are a bit inspired by how much positive feedback we've received from the holiday gala since we've changed the format with so many of our groups performing. And so I thought was a little bit like to do that sort of kind of performance where each of our ensembles got to have some fun and be a part of the whole conversation.
And I think also we had considered that we wanted to have, even in this conversation that we're having, we wanted people to know stuff that they didn't know about all the thought we put into it, and that we wanted them to know that we are deeply connected to our students and our music, and they're connected to the experience as well. So the end product is going to be a variety of discussions about music, about experiences, performances, some with masks, some without masks, in different configurations, because we wanted to bring as authentic and genuine an experience as possible to our families and to our audiences.
Anybody have anything else? Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. And also that we really care deeply about our students' safety and the safety of our audience members. And that has been a really important thread throughout the entire summer. Making music, doing anything where you have to come together is not without risk. And so we want to make sure that we're really reducing the risk in every way possible. And if there comes a time where the risk is too much, then we'll have to reevaluate that.
One more element of this whole thing is that it gave us some freedom. Uh, in a way, we were boxed in by certain things, but now we don't have to just perform on a stage. We can show that our music is happening in a breezeway, in the band room, outside under a tent or under a shade tree, and all over the area around campus. And I think that's been sort of liberating in a way of telling these composers and our students and our own stories through music.
I think the idea came up. We knew that we had risks that we were facing by having public performances, and that was a conversation we were having so early. And this idea, if I remember correctly, it was our easiest way to just go, this is something that we can control. We can break everything into small pieces. We don't have to have people in one room for 2 hours, and it just kneecapped a lot of risk right out of the gate. And that was something that I remember all of us being very concerned about.
It also gave us control over the, as you so eloquently put it every day, the ever-shifting sands that we're on. We had been planning various things, and then finally had yet another edict come down that we can't gather and we can't have live music specifically, and we finally just said let's do this instead. So.
I had forgotten that we had actually mapped out how we were going to have audiences in the Frank Center and in the McCoy Hall and in Shipley, and simulcasting so that we could maintain distance and for people's safety. And then it was just all erased with that necessary decision by the governor. And I was like, okay, well, back to the drawing board.
By voice going online, and flute getting the wind guards, and our wind instruments, other wind instruments having the socks that go, their little masks that go on, and our players who can stay masked the entire time. And there was a lot of work that went into how we control traffic flow through the building, room usage, and staggering so that people aren't together. Plenty of rooms have just been taken offline because you can't have more than one person in them now. As Curtis mentioned earlier, the professionalism of our students has been amazing. Our SRP students are the ones who they are capturing the video, they're capturing the audio, they send it to me and then I edit it. And they are just doing an incredible job. We have a great team.
And I'll just take a moment to plug, we haven't seen how this is going to work yet, but we're hoping that we'll have a lively chat discussion during the broadcast, where hopefully we can interact with the audience and the students, and people can feel like they are together experiencing this performance, even if we're all inside our own homes.
And I think I've kind of worked through the things that we wanted to make sure we communicated and shared. Thank you all so much for taking an hour out of your evening to let me ask you questions. I appreciate it.
I just want to say thank you to all of you. I know I said it before, but talking about all the things that we've gone through, I had forgotten it, just sort of all the major shifts we kept on making over and over again, to find a way to realize when this happened in March, it was like, we can't make music together anymore. And then we and our colleagues across the country struggled with it, and you all are extraordinary collaborative partners. Thank you.
I second that. This is one of my favorite gallery views to look at.
The feeling is mutual. Thank you all, and thank you, Christina, for asking the questions so beautifully.
Yeah, I echo all those sentiments. It's been a really great group to work with as well. And I think it just goes to show that during these tough times, I think you really see what people are made of. And the strength of our colleagues has risen to the top. And we put our differences aside, and this village is raising a group of next musicians and doing so very successfully, more than I actually imagined it would turn out. The recording projects has been stellar and a lot of fun. So hope you all enjoy it.
Thank you all so much for joining us tonight, and enjoy the concert.
Bye.
Bye.
Good roads.